Well, I think the cosy relationship between Mr. Johnson and Mr. Sharp, I'm never quite sure whether Sharp has got an E on the end or whether it hasn't, or whether that's simply the novels where Sharp has got an E on the end. But anyway, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Sharp, and indeed of Sam Blythe, who was this distant cousin of Johnson's who helped the Prime Minister get the loan for £800,000. Sharp at the time was working at number 10. And although they may have informed the Cabinet Secretary Simon Case, the whole thing was slightly too chummy to be entirely accepted as above board. This isn't something that you or I could drum up in a month of Sundays. It's only something, frankly, that a Prime Minister sitting in number 10 could manage to arrange, whether it's correct or incorrect. It doesn't matter. The optics are extremely dodgy, and the chairman of the BBC didn't disclose this dodgy relationship, didn't disclose this dodgy deal when he was being questioned by the committee that oversaw his appointment. And that in itself, whether he was simply giving advice to Mr. Blythe to talk to the right people, in other words, talk to Simon Case, who they all knew, or whether he was furthering the deal himself, it doesn't really matter. The point is he didn't talk about it in the same way Mr. Zahawi did not talk about the fact that there were HMRC concerns hovering over him at the time when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. That is what is so dodgy. The fact that he has paid a large amount of money and sorted the problem out, quote, is neither here nor there. It's the fact that the problem was hanging over him when he was in charge of everybody else's finances. At what point, we have to ask, there are a series of questions. At what point did he become aware of the unpaid tax? Was it in July? Was it later than July? Was it practically in November? When did he become aware of it? Why did he suddenly pay in January? And when the tax issue was first raised, which I think was in July, Mr. Zahawi responded with libel threats. And yet the investigation into his tax affairs were perfectly sound and prove, and now the facts prove that they were justified. His father was involved in a thing called Balshaw Investments. He was entitled to YouGov investments. What was the exact allocation? This is the problem. There was vagueness. What is Mr. Zahawi being taxed on? We understand it was one figure. Now it seems to be another figure. Did he benefit significantly from Balshaw, and has that been properly declared? The amount of money involved is enormous for most people, and yet it's dismissed by Mr. Zahawi. Did he approach HMRC, or did they approach him? And given the fact that there's a 30% penalty involved in the amount of money that he paid, it implies that his advisors, or his accountant, or he himself did not give a full and complete statement of what was going on. Why not? Surely he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Surely he had all information at his fingertips. So what has been going on? If, as Mr. Zahawi has always said repeatedly, that he has paid and he's paid all the tax that was due, then why did he get such a sizable penalty imposed? Why did he try to correct the son's argument by saying that he didn't have lawyers negotiating his settlement? The whole thing is fraught with with questions, allegations, the scent of deceit. And Mr. Zahawi may be perfectly sound, his affairs may be perfectly above board, but they don't seem to be. And it's that lack of credibility which breeds distrust. And this man is in charge of one of the major political parties in our country, the political party that actually controls government. And that's why he should resign. And an honourable person would resign at this stage. If he were in Ukraine, I'm sure he would do exactly that. He would resign the moment the questions were raised. We've got it wrong because we think that somebody who is charged with a crime has a right to a free and fair trial. That's absolutely true. But somebody who is a minister for the government is appointed and continues to be a minister simply on the discretion of the Prime Minister. It's in his gift. This isn't about whether or not he's committed a crime or not. It's about whether the Prime Minister has trust in him. If I were the Prime Minister, I would not. Whether he's committed a crime, whether he's done something dodgy, that's another matter. But can Mr. Zahawi go out onto television and defend the government? No, he can't, because all the questions that will be asked will be about his own finances. He is incapable of doing the job that he has been appointed to do. Why? Because he's muddied the waters with his own personal life and with his own personal financial irregularities. However irregular or however acceptable they may be. But in fact, we know that they are not entirely regular because he's paid a penalty fine. Surely our ministers of state are there to set an example. And what's this example? That we should all be involved in some sort of tax avoidance until we get found out?